Welcome to another edition of Double Take's Offseason Report. Now, the Knicks have been bad for a while now, but their issues go farther than what's happening on the court. James Dolan has done more damage to this team than any one player could ever do. But putting their organizational issues aside, could this roster be salvaged into something actually competitive? Obviously, this team has a lot of needs. As of right now, RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson are the only young players on the roster that are showing real promise, with Kevin Knox and Dennis Smith Jr. both taking pretty big steps backwards last season. Julius Randle is solid, could have been a little better last year, but he's no number one option. Elfrid Payton is good for 10 and 7, but he really hasn't improved much since his sophomore year. Outside of that group, you have some flat-out busts, semi-washed-up journeymen, and straight-up no-namers. But fear not, Knicks fans, because you got some things going for you. For one, you have the lowest payroll in the league as of right now. The cap going forward is going to be full of uncertainty due to the pandemic, so having this extra flexibility will be useful to say the least. With the offseason in 2021 coming with some pretty big names, the Knicks should be once again in the running for a high-caliber player. Though you might be saying, the Knicks haven't gone a big free agent in years. This is mostly due to them being a sorry team or not having another all-star in roster. With one trade, this wouldn't be their circumstance anymore. The Knicks have been reported to be interested in Russell Westbrook. If they can pull this off, it would change everything. Not only is having a guy like Russ a sure way to boost morale about the team, it's a huge incentive for a free agent in the future to come to New York and pair up with a guy who was once the MVP. The Knicks have the option of using their 8th overall pick in the upcoming draft or giving up a future first rounder, while packaging that pick with a player like Julius Randle and throwing either Dennis Smith Jr. or Elfrid Payton to make it all worth it for the Rockets. Since Westbrook has already made it known to the public that he wants to leave, Houston will have even less leverage going into these trade discussions. I personally think that Russ isn't perfect, but would get along with Tom Thibodeau, and if he truly wanted to run a team again on the biggest stage, Madison Square Garden definitely fits the bill. This would allow the Knicks to build around Westbrook, Barrett, and Robinson, as they would have enough cap space to take on Russ's contract and have plenty of money to acquire quality role players or roll the dice on getting a superstar in 2021. Either way, I think they should get Joe Harris this offseason. He's a guy that you don't have to pay a lot, has value in whatever team he's on as a shooter, and you're taking him away from Brooklyn. Now, if the Knicks retain the 8th pick because they didn't go for Westbrook or for whatever reason, I think they could still get a quality player in this draft slot. If Isaac Okoro or Onyeka Okongwu are still available, I believe both have star potential and can at least play a solid role on this team. In the off chance that Killian Hayes is still on the board, I think he'll be a lot better than your current Frenchman by a long shot. In the end, I guess what I'm trying to say is that not all hope is lost. The Knicks have a wide open payroll with a bevy of team options, so they really control their fate going forward. They may not be playoff contenders, but they aren't locked into anything, have flexibility going into the 2021 offseason, and have some young assets and draft picks, both of which were absent in New York for a good amount of time. I know things haven't been great, but there's a reality that exists in which the Knicks make the necessary moves and don't lose New York over to the Nets. In the meantime, Knicks fans will have to cross their fingers and hope that the past doesn't become the future.